Please, don't take the cloth off. A plea that froze a cowboy's heart. In the harsh years of the Wild West, every town carried its own secrets, buried under a haze of dust. In Red Hollow, on a night when a sandstorm split the skies, cowboy Jonah Mercer pushed into an abandoned stable, searching for shelter. But in that darkness, he heard faint moans, like a lost soul begging for deliverance. When the rickety door creaked open, Jonah saw a young woman bound, her body beaten, a ragged cloth thrown over her frame. He stepped closer, ready to pull the cloth away to check her wounds. But in that instant she burst into tears, terror blazing in her eyes. "Please, don't take the cloth off," she begged, voice breaking. Why would a survivor fear being uncovered more than death itself? Jonah, a man who'd faced blood and bullets all his life, felt shaken for the first time by a secret buried beneath that tattered cloth. That night, Red Hollow lay smothered in a raging dust storm. Wind shrieked through the alleys, whipping red grit across dim lanterns that flickered outside the saloons. The town held its breath. No soul dared step into the streets. Only the pounding hooves of Jonah Mercer cut through the night. Jonah, his face weathered by sun and wind, eyes heavy with fatigue, had only planned to ride through town and wait out the storm. But near the riverbed stables, abandoned long ago, his ears caught something strange, a weak, muffled moan, like an animal in pain. He swung down, palm brushing the grip of his Colt, and pushed into the dark. The smell of damp hay, rusted iron, and dried blood filled his lungs. In the far corner, a small figure lay slumped, wrists bound cruelly by rough rope. A gray cloth trembled over her body. When Jonah's lantern light reached her, he saw bruises blooming across her arms, her face pale with agony. He knelt beside her, reaching to lift the filthy cloth. But the moment his calloused hand brushed the fabric, the girl jolted, choking out a sob. "Please, don't take the cloth off," she gasped, her voice raw with desperation. Jonah froze. In a life carved by violence, he'd heard many pleas, yet never had 4 simple words clawed so deep into his chest. He pulled his hand back, locking eyes with hers, eyes swollen red with terror. "What's your name?" Jonah's voice was gravel in the storm. "Evelyn?" She drew a ragged breath, her gaze darting between fear and despair. "Evelyn Carter." Jonah felt the tremor in her wrists as he drew his knife and carefully cut the ropes, easing the blade so it wouldn't scar her further. When the last strand fell, Evelyn collapsed against him, her strength gone. Outside, the storm howled. Inside, only Evelyn's labored breaths and Jonah's wary eyes filled the silence. What kind of devil would cast a girl into such torment? Jonah raised the lantern. The rag slipped from her shoulder. He stilled. Beneath the fabric lay not mere bruises, but scars, blackened and twisted, etched like the handprints of a demon. They weren't random. They were carved with purpose, branding from a merciless hand. Evelyn clutched the cloth tighter, tears spilling. "Don't look. Please." Her voice cracked, as if the shame of being seen cut deeper than any whip. But Jonah did not turn away. His battle-worn eyes, scarred by war, burned at the sight of her frail body. "Who did this to you?" His voice was low, a stone rolling across gravel. Evelyn's eyes flashed through her tears. "They did. Barrett's men. Colonel Barrett." The name struck Jonah like thunder. His chest tightened with old memories. Hollow Creek engulfed in flames, screams rising, children crying, and the face of his closest comrade swallowed by fire. Her voice shook, but her words carried steel. I'm the only one who survived the Hollow Creek massacre. I saw everything. My mother, my father, my brothers, shot, burned. I hid in the wood cellar, listening as my family died. I remember every face of the men who did it. Jonah's heart clenched, for Evelyn was not some nameless prisoner. She was the daughter of Daniel Carter, his brother-in-arms, the man Jonah once believed had perished with his family in the Hollow Creek blaze. "Your father," Jonah whispered, his voice breaking. "Daniel Carter. He was my brother on the battlefield. He—" The words stuck in his throat. Evelyn stared, eyes wide. "You knew my father?" Jonah nodded slowly. Through the dust in his eyes, something fierce stirred. Grief colliding with the truth of the past. He'd thought war had buried it all. Yet fate had dragged it back, setting before him the blood of the man he once called brother. The wind battered the walls, the storm shrieking like the ghosts of the dead. Inside the stable, Jonah and Evelyn sat in the fragile glow of the lantern. One was a man haunted by war. The other, a girl scarred by a generation's ruin. And in Jonah's chest, something hardened, not just the echo of war, but a vow. This child would not die as her family had. He would face Barrett, the man who had set fire to both their lives. The mountain trail twisted upward, swallowed by night. Only the lantern's dim glow and the steady clop of hooves marked the path. Jonah urged his old horse along the rocky incline. Evelyn's frail body slumped in his arms. Below, the dust storm still howled across the valley. But up here, beneath whispering pines, the world grew quiet, save for the heavy thud of two pounding hearts. A weather-beaten cabin revealed itself against the cliffside, tucked beyond a rubble-strewn path. Jonah had lived here in seclusion for years, far from the prying eyes of town. Inside, he laid Evelyn on a crude bed of furs, struck a fire in the hearth, and let the warmth chase the desert chill from her bones. Still, she curled in on herself, fingers clutching her shirt front as if guarding a secret. Each time, Jonah drew near. Her gaze flickered, wary, like she feared what he might see. Only when the fire spread its glow did she finally whisper, You don't understand. I have to keep it." Jonah eased onto the bedside, his scarred face carved with the years of battle. "Keep what, Evelyn? You're safe here. No one can touch you now." With trembling hands, she reached beneath her blouse and drew out a small, battered journal. The leather cover was torn, its edges stained with dried blood. She nearly dropped it, but forced it into Jonah's hands. This is why I'm still alive, and why they're hunting me." Jonah opened it. The pages were smeared and torn, yet the writing cut clear. Names, dates, dollar amounts, and beside each name a cold final stroke, a ledger of lives sold and broken. His eyes froze on a bold heading, Silver Vein Mine, the notorious silver pit of Arizona. Beneath it, entire groups were cataloged, where they'd been taken, their selling price, their health. Jonah's grip tightened until his knuckles whitened. "Colonel Barrett," Evelyn whispered, eyes fixed on the fire, tears shimmering. "He's the one behind it. Once a Confederate officer, now dressed as a businessman. He buys and sells people like cattle, forces them to dig silver until they die. This journal, it's proof. If he gets it back, it disappears forever. But if we can get it to the law, 187 souls might walk free." Jonah closed his eyes. The name Barrett was no stranger. It had haunted him since the night Hollow Creek drowned in blood. Now Evelyn had handed him the spark that lit the shadows of his past. He set the book on the table, voice steady. If what you say is true, then this isn't just your fight, Evelyn. It belongs to all of us. And his eyes burned in the firelight. I won't let Barrett bury another life. The journal lay open, its pages whispering damnation. Jonah's chest tightened when he reached the line. 187 still alive. His breath came hard, each number cutting deeper into the scars he carried. You realize, he rasped, eyes bloodshot. If this gets out, Barrett won't just hunt you. He'll hunt me too. He's got the money and men to scour every inch of this desert. Evelyn sat across the fire, pale but unyielding. Her fingers clenched the fabric at her chest like a final anchor. I know, she said, voice trembling yet fierce. But those 187 trapped in Silver Vein, they need us. If we stay silent, they'll die in the dark. Her words rang like iron through the cabin. Jonah turned away, but the storm was already inside him. For years he'd hidden here, believing distance could smother the past. But now the past sat across from him, scarred, alive, staring with eyes that reminded him of someone he once loved. He turned another page. The scrawl leapt out. Order by Colonel J. Barrett. Burn Hollow Creek Settlement. Casualties complete. Jonah's hands shook. His breath snagged in his chest. The letters stared back like embers refusing to die. Hollow Creek, he muttered, voice raw. Evelyn's head snapped up. You know Hollow Creek? Jonah's jaw clenched, teeth grinding. The fire painted his face in harsh relief. Barrett. He gave the order. He's the one who burned the settlement, wiped out my family. I lost everything that night. My wife, my son, and every reason I had left to believe in men. The silence that followed was suffocating, broken only by the crackle of pine wood. Evelyn's tears spilled, her voice a quiver. So you're one of us. Hollow Creek stole everything from you. The same as me. Jonah shut his eyes. The screams came back, the flames, the dark rider on a black horse raising his arm for fire. And now he had a name to pin on the ghost. Barrett. When Jonah opened his eyes, the hesitation was gone. No longer a hermit hiding from war, but the soldier he once was. He pressed the journal back into Evelyn's hands. You're right. This isn't just yours. 187 souls are waiting. And maybe it's time I paid my debt in blood to Barrett. Evelyn nodded, tears streaking her cheeks, yet her eyes shone with new fire. In that lonely cabin, two survivors forged a fragile pact, a bond born of scars and silence, bound by the promise of justice against the same enemy. Night lay heavy over Silver Vein Valley. From afar, torchlight flickered against the wooden walls that ringed the mine, casting shadows on the shabby barracks inside. Shadows of men and women moving like hollow ghosts. The air reeked of sweat, coal smoke, and despair. Jonah pulled his hat low, the stolen guard's coat tight across his broad shoulders. Behind him, Evelyn hid in the dark, clutching the journal to her chest, her breath ragged, heartbeat hammering like war drums. Stay here, Jonah murmured, voice low as gravel. Wait for my signal. If anything happens, run. Don't you dare look back. Evelyn nodded, but her eyes clung to him, wide with fear. Jonah strode to the administrative gate, where two guards leaned on their rifles, half asleep in the dead of night. One squinted at him. Never seen you before. What shift you on? Jonah answered in a slow drawl, heavy with a southern edge. Just got reassigned. Captain told me to spell you boys before you drop dead of boredom. The guard's brow furrowed, his hand sliding toward his pistol. Name? Jonah paused. One heartbeat too long could cost him, but his lips curled and he spat out the first name that burned from memory. Collins. The two guards exchanged a look, suspicion rising sharp. There ain't no Collins here. The air thickened. Jonah shifted back a half step, hand easing toward his Colt. The second guard spat into the dirt. Hold it. Hands where I can see 'em. The moment stretched thin. Evelyn, hidden in shadow, held her breath, knuckles white against the journal. Then gunfire split the night. Jonah's Colt roared, a bullet tearing into the first guard's shoulder before his rifle cleared its strap. He screamed, stumbling back. The second raised his weapon, fired wild, sparks spraying from the wooden gate. Jonah lunged, knocked the barrel aside, and fired again. Chaos erupted. Shouts tore from the barracks. Lanterns flared. Rifles clattered into hands. The air filled with smoke and screams. Jonah ducked behind a crate, firing measured shots, each one deliberate, unflinching. He knew there was no turning back, and Evelyn, watching from the shadows, saw him stand firm in the storm, broad shoulders unyielding as a wall of stone. In the maelstrom of fire and steel, one thought drove him. Hold them long enough for Evelyn to escape. He would not let Hollow Creek happen again. Smoke thickened, bullets cracked through the night, splinters raining. Jonah pressed his back to the wall, sweat and coal dust streaking his weathered face. He leaned out, fired. One guard dropped. But from the watchtower, a rifle barked back, splintering the wood at his feet. Jonah dove sideways, but pain seared his leg, a bullet tearing through muscle. He staggered, blood blooming down his trousers, vision blurring. From the shadows, Evelyn broke cover. "You're hurt," she cried. "Get back," Jonah barked, throwing up an arm. A shot ripped his coat shoulder, shredding cloth. He grit his teeth, propped himself against the crate, Colt still steady. "Run, Evelyn. Take the journal. Go. Don't look back." She froze, tears brimming. She saw him, a lone man against a storm of guns, eyes burning like the last torch in the night. Her chest ached. "I can't leave you. You must!" Jonah's roar cracked like thunder. Another shot rang out. Another soldier fell. "If you stay, all this is for nothing. Go now!" Her hands trembled, but she reached into her pocket, drew a blood-stained page torn from the journal. She pressed it into Jonah's palm before he could stop her. "If they take me, you keep this. This page matters most. Don't let Barrett bury the truth again." The wind screamed, torches swayed, firelight strobed against the smoke. Jonah braced himself, rifle in hand, pain lancing through his leg, but his stance unbroken. Far off, Evelyn fled into the night, her dress ripped by thorns, caked in mud. Each step cut her lungs, but Jonah's voice thundered in her skull. "Go! Don't look back!" Behind her, hooves pounded, riders shouting. She veered into a canyon path, clutching the bloodied page, the last proof of Silvervein's sins. Back at the barricade, Jonah fought on. Each shot struck true, but they swarmed like ants, endless, ravenous. Blood seeped from his leg. His strength waned, yet his will burned hotter than pain. "Just a few more minutes," he growled, eyes hard as steel. "That's all she needs." A bullet slammed into his shoulder, driving him to one knee. His vision swam red. Yet still he rose, teeth clenched, firing again. A fallen torch struck an oil barrel. Flames erupted, roaring skyward. Fire washed Jonah's face in crimson light. Not only agony, but the fierce glow of a man who would not yield. Evelyn burst from the canyon, only to find Sheriff Claiborne blocking the path, a hulking shadow in the moonlight. His revolver gleamed cold. "Thought you could run, girl?" he sneered, voice sharp as a knife. Evelyn froze, heart hammering. The page shook in her hand, slick with sweat and tears. She knew if she fell here, Jonah's sacrifice would be wasted. Memories of his steel eyes, his trust, cut through her fear. She bit her lip until it bled, then lunged sideways, flinging a handful of dirt into Claiborne's face. He cursed, gunshots ringing wild. One seared her arm, hot blood spilling. But she ran on, feet pounding into the night, the devils of Silver Vein shrieking at her heels. Back in the mine yard, Jonah staggered, vision failing. His rifle grew heavy, blood dripping down his brow. But he still heard the soldiers shouting, still sensed Evelyn's footsteps fading into distance. And he smiled, lips wet with blood. She'll make it. She'll bring the truth. Gunfire thundered one last time. Jonah fell into fire and smoke. Yet before the darkness took him, he still heard his own command echo through the storm. Go! Don't look back! On the distant ridge, Evelyn stumbled, fell hard. Pain racked her, but when she lifted her head, she saw the mine ablaze behind her, flames clawing into the night sky. A column of fire, the mark of one man's sacrifice. She cried out, a broken sob, but forced herself to rise. Her life was no longer her own. It now carried Jonah's blood, and the justice still waiting to be born. Night stretched endless across Red Hollow Ravine. The thin crescent moon cast a pale silver glow, broken by jagged rock faces stabbing upward on either side. Evelyn ran barefoot, her soles torn and bleeding, breath ragged as if every gulp of air dragged fire through her chest. Pressed tight against her breast was the journal, the only thing left to cling to, the only tether of hope. Behind her, bootsteps pounded the ground, echoing like funeral drums. Shouts rose. Catch her! Rebounding off the canyon walls, splitting the silence like a whip crack. Evelyn didn't dare look back. She tore through thorn and brush, sharp branches slashing her skin, but she ran on. The wind carried with it the stench of sweat, gunpowder, and the men chasing her. She knew she couldn't outrun them forever. Her legs buckled, strength drained, lungs burning raw. And then, light. A lantern flared ahead, its glow cutting the dark. One of Barrett's soldiers had broken off, closing in. The firelight washed his face, rough, scarred, twisted with drink and cruelty. His sneer widened when he saw her cornered against the cliffside. Nowhere left to run, girl, Mindy rasped, the lantern swinging, its flame glaring in her terrified eyes. Evelyn's back hit the rock wall. Her hands trembled, despair clawing through her veins. Then her gaze dropped to a stone at her feet. Heavy, sharp. Instinct screamed. She stooped, clutching it tight in her small palm. The soldier stepped closer, hand reaching. Evelyn cried out, a strangled roar of fear and fury, and swung. The rock smashed into his temple with a sickening thud. He staggered, lantern crashing to the dirt, flames spilling in a shimmer of sparks. Blood streamed down his face as he collapsed, motionless in the dust. Evelyn froze, chest heaving, the stone slick with red in her trembling hand. Tears blurred her vision. She wasn't a killer, but if she hadn't fought, she'd already be gone. And with her, the journal, the only chance for hundreds of souls, would have died too. She scooped the journal from the dirt, clutching it tight. Fear still coiled inside her, but something harder flared in her eyes now. Resolve. But the hunt wasn't over. The other shouts grew louder, closer. A pack of wolves hungry for blood. Evelyn ran again, her slight figure swallowed by the canyon's shadows, every step balanced between life and death. The ravine pressed in, black as tar, the ground littered with brittle leaves and loose rock that cracked underfoot. The moon above was no comfort, only a thin ghost of light. Evelyn's chest hammered, her legs numb, yet her will dragged her forward. Then, click. The metallic snap of a hammer pulled back. Evelyn froze, blood turning cold. From the shadows ahead, a tall figure stepped into the moonlight. His face was hollow, hard, his eyes glinting like a predator's. Silas Blackwood, Barrett's right hand. A name whispered across the west like a curse. He leveled a pistol at her chest, voice low and cutting. End of the line, girl. Hand me the book. You know who it belongs to. Evelyn backed into the cliff, the rock cold against her spine. Sweat chilled her skin, yet she clutched the journal tighter, refusing to break her stare. I won't give it to you, she whispered, voice trembling, but firm. Silas chuckled, cruel and sharp. Stupid little thing. You think you can stand against Silver Vein? One pull of this trigger and it's over. Evelyn's eyes stung. She shut them, hugged the book to her chest, braced for the shot. But instead, thunder cracked. A gunshot ripped the silence. Silas's eyes went wide, pistol slipping from his hand. Blood bloomed across his chest. He staggered, choking, then fell, the look of disbelief frozen on his face. Evelyn gasped, eyes flying open. From the shadows behind, a figure limped forward, pistol smoking in his grip. Jonah. He staggered, leg dragging, his face pale, hair matted with sweat, but his eyes burned bright, fierce as ever. You're alive? Evelyn's voice broke with relief. Jonah gave a weary nod, pistol still steady. I told you. I wouldn't leave you alone. Tears welled, spilling hot down her dirt-streaked cheeks. In that moment, she understood. Her survival wasn't chance, wasn't miracle. It was born of the will of a man who had lost everything, yet still chose to stand and bleed to shield her. The smoke drifted away into the canyon night. Beside Silas Blackwood's corpse, Jonah and Evelyn locked eyes. Both knew the truth. This was only the beginning. Barrett still walked free, and the shadow of Silver Vein loomed larger than ever. Dawn bled red across the distant ridges, spilling weak light over land still thick with the stench of gunpowder. Jonah steadied Evelyn out of the ravine, his steps heavy, but his eyes still burning with resolve. They walked until the first rays touched the dirt road leading to an old stage stop. There, two men waited, Sheriff Dalton Price and Thomas, the sun-darkened native who had survived more years of war than most men dared count. Dalton, with his gray mustache and weathered gaze, stepped forward first. Jonah Mercer, his voice rasped, but carried steel. I never reckoned I'd see you back in this fight. Jonah gave a slight nod, lowering Evelyn onto the rotted wooden steps. Time's pulled me back, Dalton. And this time, we've got something Barrett can't deny. Evelyn opened the journal, blood-stained pages trembling in her hands. Dalton and Thomas bent low, scanning the scrawled names, dates, prices, places of capture. The words told it plain, an empire of flesh and chains. Thomas's jaw locked, his calloused fist slamming the wood. He took my people, drove them into that silver pit like beasts. My father died down there. And now the proof lies here. Dalton's grip tightened on the ledger, his eyes narrowing. With this, we can drag Barrett before the federal court. But he's rich. He's got guns. He's got men. A book alone won't save us. Without a plan, he'll burn every page before the law ever lays eyes on it. Jonah leaned back against a post, hand pressed to the bandage on his leg. His voice was low, roughened by pain. Then we take it to Prescott. Judges there still carry spines, but the road's a gauntlet. Barrett won't let this ledger leave Silver Vein. Evelyn lifted her chin. Her voice shook, but her will cut strong. We don't have a choice. 187 souls are waiting in those mines. I won't let my parents' deaths or Hollow Creek mean nothing. Silence pressed in. Morning light spilled through the cracks of the station, falling across the journal like a curse carved in blood. Dalton finally spoke, his words sharp as iron. Then Prescott it is, but not just the three of us. I'll call the ones left with courage. Barrett's terrors run long enough. Thomas nodded, his eyes hard as forged steel. Jonah clasped Evelyn's hand, meeting her gaze with quiet resolve. A new war had been drawn in their hearts, not for themselves alone, but for justice for every soul shackled in the dark of Silver Vein. By noon, the sun blazed down on the red dirt road stretching from the stage stop. Jonah, Evelyn, Dalton, and Thomas walked in silence, each burdened with ghosts, yet bound by a single purpose. The ledger rested inside Jonah's coat, beating faintly like the heart of their mission. They had barely cleared the third bend when hoofbeats thundered. From both slopes, riders appeared, rifles leveled, steel flashing in the harsh light. Dust boiled up, encircling them in a choking haze. At their head rode Barrett, astride a black stallion, his face carved in stone. He smiled a cruel, knowing smile, his voice booming across the pass. You think you can carry that ledger out of Silver Vein? Out here, law is written by my hand. Evelyn gripped Jonah's arm, breath caught tight. Jonah's teeth clenched, fingers brushing his revolver. But before he drew, Sheriff Dalton stepped forward. Slowly, he pulled open his coat, revealing the silver star on his chest. Under the high sun, the badge blazed like fire. His voice rang out, echoing off the canyon walls. Barrett, you can buy guns, buy men, but you can't buy justice. Your name is written in this book, and today you stand before the law. Barrett sneered, raising his hand. Over 20 rifles cocked in unison, the metallic clatter sharp as knives. Justice? He spat. Justice here is at the end of a barrel. 4 lives against my order. 1 word from me, and you're done. The air tightened, drawn taut as a bowstring. Evelyn closed her eyes, bracing for the first shot. Then, from the rocks, from brush and hidden gullies, figures emerged. Men and women, scarred and hardened, clutching hunting rifles, axes, picks. Their eyes blazed with fury long suppressed. Thomas stepped forward, lips curling into a grim smile. You forgot something, Barrett. Fear breaks men, but grief for the dead burns hotter. These are the sons and daughters of the ones you chained, the brother of the ones you killed. They're not silent anymore. A roar rose, shaking the canyon. For freedom! Barrett stiffened in his saddle. He had expected 4. Now 24 survivors stood, armed and unyielding. The weight of power tipped in an instant. Sheriff Dalton raised his revolver high, his voice booming like a bell. Barrett, you can fire if you dare. But remember this. Today, it's you who stands hunted. The canyon wind stirred, whipping red dust into a veil between the two sides. Rifles leveled, eyes locked. The final reckoning had come. Gunfire thundered through the canyon, smoke curling into the red dust that swirled thick as storm clouds. Screams of the fallen clashed with battle cries of defiance. Sheriff Dalton, Thomas, and the townsfolk, once victims, now fighters, pressed forward with fury. Their momentum surged, and Barrett's men faltered, their line breaking like dry twigs. Barrett's face darkened. He spurred his black stallion hard, cloak, snapping in the wind, as he turned toward the tree line. His eyes cut back, burning with malice. He no longer cared for victory, only for survival, only for vengeance later. Jonah, limping, raised his revolver. His sights locked on Barrett's retreating figure, breath harsh, finger tightening on the trigger. But before he fired, a trembling hand rested on his shoulder. Evelyn. Her dirt-streaked face was pale, her eyes rimmed with tears yet blazing with a dawn-fire resolve. "Let me," she whispered, voice raw but steady. Jonah paused, staring deep into her gaze. He saw not only her pain, but the legacy of Hollow Creek, the fire that had consumed her childhood, her family, her soul. Slowly, he nodded. With a heavy breath, he placed the revolver into her hands. The Colt weighed heavy, her fingers quivering under its burden. Ahead of her, Barrett's back swayed in the saddle, arrogant still, certain he could escape. But in Evelyn's mind, the sight fused with memory, the child she had once been, hiding in the wood cellar, hearing her mother's last scream as flames devoured her world. Tears spilled, but Evelyn's eyes stayed fixed. She drew a deep breath. In that instant, the world hushed, the battle cries dimmed, the gunfire faded. Only her heartbeat, her grip, and her target remained. Crack! The shot split the dawn. Barrett jerked, tumbling from his saddle. He struck the dirt hard, dust billowing as his eyes froze wide with disbelief. A hoarse rattle escaped his throat, fingers clawing at the red Arizona earth, before his body stilled forever. Evelyn lowered the gun, shaking uncontrollably. She collapsed to her knees, small hands covering her face as sobs tore free. Yet woven into her grief was release. The monster who had burned Hollow Creek, who had slain her mother, was finally gone by her hand. Jonah knelt beside her, his rough hand gripping her shoulder. He said nothing. There were no words fit for that moment. But in his silence, she felt his recognition, his shared sorrow, his kinship. Far to the east, the sky blushed with dawn. The sun's first light spilled across Barrett's lifeless body, revealing the truth. His shadow was ended. Smoke thinned. Barrett lay still in the dust, his proud face empty at last. Word of his death spread fast as wildfire. The remaining gunmen tossed down their rifles. None dared fight for a ghost. Sheriff Dalton lifted his badge high, his voice booming through the canyon like a church bell. Silver Vein belongs to Barrett no longer. From this day forward, freedom returns. A roar rose from the freed. They rushed the mine gates, prying open the old wooden doors. Lanterns lit gaunt faces, sunken eyes, bodies broken from years underground. Yet as they stepped into the dawn, a fire sparked in their eyes, the fire of life reclaimed. A mother wept as she pulled her starving boy into her arms. An old man leaned on his stick, tilting his face to the sky, as if to make certain the light was real. Voices cried out names, recognizing kin thought long dead. 187 souls merged from the darkness. Evelyn stood among them, still trembling, but her gaze proud. Her scars remained, but now they bore witness to survival, not suffering. Dalton rested a hand on her shoulder, voice steady. Girl, Prescott needs someone like you. Teach their children they're born with the right to dream, the right to live without fear. Evelyn nodded, tears streaming, but her smile brighter than the dawn itself. She would carry her mother's unfinished dream, a schoolhouse in the West, sowing seeds of knowledge and kindness. Jonah watched from a distance. Once he had been a man hiding from the world, chained to his past. But now, as he looked at Evelyn standing tall, he understood. Some lives needed a guide, a hand to steady them through storms. Thomas came to him, smiling with faith. They'll need a leader, Jonah. A man who can turn ashes into beginnings. Are you ready? Jonah looked east, where the mountains burned gold beneath the rising sun. He exhaled, a breath carrying 12 years of guilt and silence. "First steps," he said quietly, but with the weight of steel. Evelyn slipped her hand into his, her eyes alight with trust. They didn't know what future lay ahead, but they knew this. Today, from blood and tears, a new path had begun. The dawn cast its glow over Silver Vein, no longer a mine of death, but a birthplace of freedom. And in that light, Jonah and Evelyn walked on, their first steps into a chapter yet unwritten. In Arizona's blazing dawn, this story closes not with Barrett's fall alone, but with the rebirth of hope, of freedom, of a future carved anew. Jonah, the man who once fled from his past, now found reason to rise. Evelyn, the scarred girl of Hollow Creek, stood as a beacon for tomorrow. Silver Vein fell, but from its ashes a community was born. What do you think, friends? Was this justice truly served, or only the beginning of a longer journey? Share your thoughts below. And if this tale struck your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you won't miss the next story of the Wild West.